and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Moja Areshiva and this video is about a short story of Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Yellow Wallpaper. This story, The Yellow Wallpaper, first published in the New England magazine in 1892. The story clearly states that how gender roles prevalent in the society have strictly prohibited women from having their own opinion and their freedom. So before discussing the story, let's talk a little bit about writer and the background of the story. Gilman is an American feminist writer, born in 1860. During her childhood, she and her mother were abandoned by his father. So they were dependent on the father's aunt. One of them was Harriet Beecher Stowe, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. In 1884, she married an artist, Charles Walter Stetson. After that child, she suffered from postpartum depression. It is a type of disorder which is associated with childbirth. Charlotte separated from her husband in 1888 and took divorce in 1894. She was also indulged in lesbian relationship with Adeline Knapp. This relation also came to an end. She married to Hockton Gilman, her first cousin, in 1900. Hockton died in 1934. And Gilman died by suicide on August 17, 1935, by taking overdose of chloroform. During her lifetime, she lectured on women's issues, human rights, and social reforms. She has edited the magazine The Impress and The Foreigner. She first gets recognition with her poetry volume In This Our World, which was published in 1893. Her another work, Women and Economics, was published in 1898. Herland is also a feminist utopian novel by Gilman, which was published in 1915. The Living of Charlotte Perkins Gilman was published posthumously in 1935. So we can say that the story is an autobiographical in nature because it was inspired from her own life. After giving the birth to her first child, Gilman contracted with postpartum depression. She was treated by Dr. Silas Ware Michel, pioneer of rest cure method of treatment. Gilman was also suggested strict rest cure by him, and she was not allowed to do writing, reading, or painting. But after some months, she revolted against this method of treatment and started working again. During this time, she wrote The Yellow Wallpaper and also had sent a copy to Dr. Michel, but she never gets any response. In the opening of the story, we get an idea that writer is writing a diary. She mentioned one long untenanted ancestral house that they are in. Author's husband, John, is a physician. It seems that author is sick, which she explained as nervous depression. Author is advised to take journeys and air and exercise and absolutely forbidden to work until she is well again. They came in this mention solely on author's account that she wants to have perfect rest. But author disagrees with these ideas. She personally thinks that congenial work with excitement and change would do her good. She wants to write, but she always has to hide it from her husband. She wants more society and stimulus, but John doesn't want her to write or think about her condition. She starts to describe the mansion. It is a beautiful place. It is a quiet alone, standing well back from the road, quite 3 miles from the village. But there is some legal trouble, something about heirs and co-heirs. For that reason, the place has been empty for years. Author doesn't like a room. It's a big, airy room. It was nursery first and then playroom and gymnasium, she thinks. Author criticized the yellow wallpaper on the wall. It is dull enough to confuse the eye, pronounced enough to constantly irritate and provoke study. She told John to change the wallpaper. But John discards the idea of renovating the home just for 3 months rental. John has cautioned her not to give way to fancy in the least. He says that with her imaginative power and habit of story making, a nervous weakness like her is sure to lead to all manner of excited fancies, and that she ought to use her will and good sense to check the tendency. But the paper looks to her as if it knew what a vicious influence it had. This wallpaper has a kind of soap pattern in a different shade. She can see a strange, provoking, formless sort of figure that seems to skulk about behind that silly and conspicuous front design. She wanted to go to meet her cousin, Henry and Julia. But John refused because of her sickness. He thought she was unable to go there. Besides all of this, she is happy that her baby doesn't have to live in this horrid place. According to her, there are things in that paper that nobody knows except her. It seems her like a woman stooping down and creeping about behind that pattern. She feels very difficult to talk about this to John, but at last, at one moon night, she tried. John was sleeping and she can see the faint figure behind him to shake the pattern, just as if she wanted to get out. She got up to see whether the paper did move, and by the time she came back, John was awake. She shared her feelings to John and said that she really is not gaining here, and that she wished he would take her away. "Why, darling?" said he. "Our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before. The repairs are not done at home, and I cannot possibly leave town just now. Of course, if you were in any danger, I could and would. But you are really better, dear, whether you can say it or not. I'm a doctor, dear, and I know. You are gaining flesh and color. Your appetite is better. I really feel much easier about you." "Better in body, perhaps," I began, and stopped short, for he sat up straight and looked at me with such a stern, reproachful look that I could not say another word. "My darling," said he, "I beg of you, for my sake, and for our child's sake, as well as for your own, that you will never for one instant let that idea enter your mind. There is nothing so dangerous, so fascinating to a temperament like yours. It is a false and foolish fancy. Can you not trust me as a physician when I tell you so?" As the day passes, her obsession with the paper grew more. She can notice the changes in the pattern as the light changes. She also suspected John and Jenny, the sister of John, about studying the wallpaper secretly. But she is determined that nobody shall find it but herself. Now her obsession with the wallpaper grew more intense. She doesn't want to leave the room until she found the truth of wallpaper. She started feeling better. She is now sleeping at night, but she sleeps a good deal in daytime. Besides the wallpaper, she can also sense a peculiar smell which disturbs her at first, but now she is used to it and calls it a yellow smell. She also observes the funny mark on the wall, a streak that runs round the room. It goes behind every piece of furniture except the bed, as if it had been rubbed over and over, and wonders who did it. She finally discovers something at last. It seems to her that front pattern does move, and it is moved by a woman who is trapped behind the pattern. She wishes John to take another room because she doesn't want anybody to get that woman out at night but herself. She also finds another funny thing, but she won't tell it to the reader because she doesn't want to trust people too much. She knows that John is suspecting her, and he was asking very professional questions to Jenny about her health and sleep. She determined to remove the wallpaper. She feels that John and Jenny are secretly affected by it. On the last day, she wants to be alone at night. John is out of the town, and though Jenny wants to sleep with her, she told she would undoubtedly rest better for a night all alone. She started to remove the wallpaper and make the creeping woman free from the pattern. In the morning, Jenny laughs and said she wouldn't mind doing it herself, but she must not get tired. Johnny tries her to get out of the room, but she told her that she would lie down and sleep all she could, and not to wake her up even for dinner. She would call when she woke. She has locked the door and thrown the key down into the front path and start her task of removing the wallpaper. She doesn't want anybody to enter into the room. She wanted to remove the wallpaper by standing on the bed, but she cannot move a bed. And in her frustration, she beats a piece at one corner. In her desperation and frustration, she thought of jumping off from the window. But she soon realized that a step like that is improper and might be misconstrued. She peeled off the wallpaper by standing on the floor. And then she starts talking like as she is the woman who was trapped inside the wallpaper. "I suppose I shall have to get back behind the pattern when it comes night. And that is hard. It is so pleasant to be out in this great room and creep around as I please. I don't want to go outside. I won't, even if Jenny asks me to. For outside you have to creep on the ground and everything is green instead of yellow. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor and my shoulders just fits in that long smooth around the wall so I cannot lose my way. As she was removing the wallpaper, John arrives at the door. She told him that key is down by the front steps under the plantain leaf. He asked her several times to open the door, but she refused and every time she replied the same. At last, he enters into the room. John was shocked to see the author. She looked at him and said, "I have got out at last, in spite of you and Jane. And I have pulled off most of the paper, so you can't put me back." John faints at the sight, and the writer is in a complete mental breakdown, continues to creep in a circle in the room, forced to go over his prone body. The yellow wallpaper induced her mental breakdown. And that is the end of this story, Yellow Wallpaper. Hope you enjoy the story.